Hey guys, this is a little bit of a different video from my previous video, which was a gaming video. I guess it's more of like a story time video, although it does have like gameplay of Minecraft in the background, which is kind of what I'm vibing with. So if you don't like it, you're gonna have to fucking deal with it. I literally do not give a single shit. Um, but yeah, this is the mock trial experience. All right, when I say the word stress, what comes to mind? If you're anything like me, a big introvert guy, some particular thoughts might have come to mind. Talking to people, public speaking, having the spotlight on you. If these things came to mind, don't worry, you're not alone. Sure, there are many other things that stress people out, and I'm not saying that if you're more introverted, these things will immediately come to mind. I'm not saying that if you're more extroverted, these things won't come to mind. I'm just saying that these things can be and often are associated with stress. Now, if you've done mock trial, you might, maybe not, but you might see where I'm going with this based on the title. But if you haven't done mock trial, you might be a tad confused, so let me explain. Now, mock trial, for those of you who don't know, is, as it says in the name, a mock trial. To some, it might seem like an excuse to dress up fancy and pretend that something is happening in real life, which no, definitely not. I mean, why would you even assume something like that? Why would you even think of something like that? Of course, it's not. But all jokes aside, mock trial was a club that we had in my high school, and they had at other high schools as well. Basically, you had your lawyers and your witnesses. Each team would get the affidavits, or according to the dictionary online, a written statement confirmed by oath or affirmation for use as evidence in court of each witness, which would paint a picture of a case. The job of the lawyers would be to be prepared to represent both sides, the defense and the plaintiff slash prosecution, while each witness would be designated to one side. At least that's how it works in high school, or fairly small high schools. Like, occasionally you have a big, fancy, conceded. Wait, what? No. The big, fancy high school who has one lawyer testing. No, never mind. Then the trial day would come, and each side would use what they had prepared to make their best case. Usually, there would be multiple trials over the season, and sometimes the position of the team would change. One time, we might be the prosecution and plaintiff, and the next time, we might be the defendants. The actual process of the trial is way too detailed to get into here, and since it's largely based off of real trials, you can search it up on Google if you want a better understanding. Also, because I'm pretty lazy. Side note, I remember the first day, the mock trial coach would have us play a game, but not to get to know each other. No. More so to get used to the feeling of being put on the spot. And I remember each time I did this game, I was kind of terrified. I felt like I was being chased by Big Bird in 1845, or that might have been his kill count. Either way, for an introvert like myself, it was like the water to my witch, or the sunlight to my vampire, or the silver bullet to my werewolf. I'm just looking at the script. I don't know why it had so many monster references in here. But, anyways, now let's look at the ecosystem of mock trial, at least in my experience. So there was a hierarchy. Basically, you had your team captains who were at the top of the hierarchy and were, oh my god, they were just so they were just so hot. They were just Chads, might I add. Scott and Tom, I'm looking at you. If you ever watched this video, you know. But these people were most likely the confident ones, and or the ones that had been doing it for the longest time. They were also most likely to be the lawyers and attorneys. Next, you had the lawyers who, if they were exclusively a lawyer, they probably hadn't done mock trial as long as the captains, but they usually liked the spotlight. Either that or they were pretty fucking good at what they did. Lawyers had to think on their feet. On the next rung down, you would find the witnesses, or the group that I was a part of. These people might not be as outspoken as a lawyer, or maybe they were, I don't really know. But the point is, while the lawyers were more focused on thinking on their feet at all times, witnesses had to be the masters of memorization. I'll talk about this a little bit later. Finally, you had the stand-ins, or the understudies. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't necessarily mean they were bad at what they did, and oftentimes the understudies were pretty good at what they did, but the people who they were understudying for were probably better just due to the fact that they had been doing it for longer and had more experience. If one of the original cast was out, then the understudy would be one of the most important parts of the trial, much like a play. But I'm not saying that any of this is 100% factual. I'm just gonna add a side note here. It's just based on my experience, so that's important to remember going forward. Anyways, let's talk about witnesses for a second, since, like I said, that was the role that I played during my time. I told you that they were masters of memorization, which was kind of a lie. You see, the ideal witnesses have photographic memories, and they're also able to think on their feet during cross examination, but to be honest, I wasn't really too good at either of those things. You see, somehow, in my first year, I had tricked the team into thinking that I was actually good as a witness, which I wasn't, might I add. It probably would have been better if I actually tried to study my part, which, confession time, I didn't do too much. Alright, but not to flex or anything, but I'd say I made off pretty good with as much memorization as I did, which wasn't much. But, let me tell you a little bit about that. Now, as I mentioned before, some common stressors are public speaking or having the spotlight put on you. When you are up on the stand, in order to be a good witness or lawyer, you have to be confident, agile, strong, ruthless, bloodthirsty, and finally, a great warrior. Okay, maybe not most of those, but you did have to have your part completely memorized, as well as everyone's part, and you had to be very confident. I was never good at memorization, nor was I very confident at the time, so I was kind of fucked. Now, there was this one time where I was supposed to be an expert witness. I know, ironic, right? I was actually an expert witness both years I did mock trial. I was just so good at lies and deceit that I fooled everyone. An expert witness is a witness who was not actually at the scene necessarily, but is an expert on a specific topic regarding the case. So, for instance, if you have like a case involving a shooting, you might have a ballistics expert in there. That's an expert witness. But anyways, I was an expert witness and I was scared because deep down I knew that I was fucked, but to be honest, I don't think anyone else really knew. I was shivering in me timbers. You see, I remember that I was on the bus to the courthouse. By the way, did I mention that our trials took place in an actual courthouse? And while everyone else was somewhat calm and collected as they had memorized everything they needed to do, I was calm and collected as well. On the surface. On the inside, I was having a crisis. We had reached DEFCON 1. All the alarms were going off, and my body was telling me to run. I had memorized what was on the script, and not really much else. I hadn't prepared as much as I should have for cross-examination. So we walk into the courthouse, and everything's fine. I'm just having a minor panic attack, not a big deal, and we shuffle into our seats. There's a long waiting period before the judge arrives, and I'm lost in my head. It seems like forever before the trial gets started, and I wait. And I think I really needed to go pee, but that was not allowed during the... You know what, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that each witness and lawyer before me takes seemingly forever. But before you know it, it's my turn. I walk the plank, and I feel the dead stares of everyone on the opposing team, and my lawyer. You know who you are. I take the oath and sit down. Now, I do direct examination perfectly, all according to the script. Maybe I messed up here and there a little bit, but that's besides the point. Because then we approach the spooky and scary part. We go off script. It's time for cross-examination. The lawyer comes up. I look around. Okay, he doesn't seem too confident. This is good. This is what we need. My anxiety starts going down as I realize that I can actually answer all his questions, and I'm kind of chilling, to be honest. But then the next thing I know, he gets a second wind. It's like that scene in Infinity War where Gamora kills Thanos, but then Thanos uses the Reality Stone to reveal, bam, he's not dead. He pulls out a question, bringing my character's tests into evidence. Now, I don't remember the exact question, but I do remember that I basically had a heart attack, as I had no idea how to answer the question. As far as I could recall, it was nowhere in the affidavit. I did actually read the affidavits a few times. For a moment, it's silent. There's nothing I can do. But then, out of nowhere, my lawyer, my angel, my herald of light comes down. The clouds part and a bright light shines down on me. Objection. Stipulation 9. At least I think it was Stipulation 9. Those were the words that came out of his mouth. According to the rules, he technically couldn't ask that question because it was covering something that wasn't in any of the affidavits. And the best part is, his whole cross-examination rested on that question. He soon left the stage, and I sat back down, so I was rather relieved. Everyone congratulated me after, but I knew, oh boy, only I knew that I had fooled them all. Each of his questions were fairly easy to answer, and even though I had answered most of them correctly, I knew that I should have had at least some knowledge about what he was actually asking. The reason I didn't respond wasn't just because the answer couldn't be found in the affidavit, but also because, well, I simply didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. So, I'll try to keep these next parts brief, since this video is probably long enough anyways, but let's flash forward to a year later. Surprise, I'm another expert witness. What do you know, after that traumatic experience before, I decided to come back for more. Hey, that rhymes. You know, if you saw my Cuphead wing eating stream at twitch.tv/elixir_DG2, come over to streams, which will be a video soon to come, you will already know that I'm somewhat of a masochist. So anyways, I'm another expert witness. You know karma? Well, that was something I was about to experience. It was only thematic that I repeated the same mistakes as last year. The only difference was that I had a false sense of confidence. Oh, what a naive kid I was. But that was less than a year ago, dipshit. I'll spare you the beginning details. Same shit occurs, tense bus ride, witnesses before me go, yada yada yada. My time is now. At this point, as I begin walking up, I start to think about last year and how I dodged a bullet. Boy, was I lucky that the lawyer questioning me wasn't confident, but what if this lawyer is actually prepared? My anxiety begins to set in. I try to ignore the anxiety and I answer the direct perfectly, with some flair here and there. I feel good. Almost good enough to forget about the oncoming storm, but not quite. My lawyer sits down after the direct, and the one cross-examining me gets up. Now, you know how when you're in a room and you, the introverted person you are, hiding away in the corner from all social interaction, sees someone walk in and you can just tell they mean business. You can just tell they're confident and intimidating. They have like a sort of swagger to their step. No? Just me? Well, that's what happened at that moment anyways. Like a Hunter character using Nen, an aura was emanating from him, and it was at that moment I knew I was fucked. Anxiety builds up again. He starts asking me questions, and it's like a wave of intensity hits me. I barely know how to answer his questions, and I just barely pass. Some of the questions I'm pretty sure I didn't even answer correctly. I think, how could it get any worse? And then, the final question comes. We aren't even close to the time limit, so I can't stall him and be saved by the bell. I have to answer it. What happens next can be described as verbal fencing, except I'm an innocent child and he's a gold medalist in the Olympics. He's just going absolutely ham. I can't even process what he is saying. I don't even know to this day, to be honest, and that's not his fault. That's just me being me. What he was asking. I stutter, trying to come up with an answer, but I have none. I ask him to repeat it, trying to stall him, and he complies, but all I see is a look of pity, to be entirely honest. He knows, my lawyer knows, everyone knows. Everyone knows that I fucked up, but no one knows that more than me. Eventually, I give him something which can barely be called an answer, but nonetheless, he got what he wanted. To put it in the simplest terms, I kind of got cucked. Now, as I return to my seat, quite the stark contrast from the first trial. No one congratulates me, and rightfully so. They all know what happened. I might not be remembering correctly. This is a little asterisk, side note, whatever you want to call it. I might not be remembering entirely correctly since anything around the trial is a bit of a haze, and we all know that I am not the master of memorization. But the fact that both my dad and my crush at the same time were both watching. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention my crush was there too. It didn't make it any better. The one trial that my dad comes to, I fuck it up. Can you believe that? I fuck it up. I fuck it up. So that's my mock trial experience. But I kind of want to say a few things before I go. Obviously, mock trial was a vibe. I wouldn't have done it 2 years in a row if it wasn't fun. It honestly, if you're looking to become more confident, then I might suggest doing it if you have the chance, as it kind of forces you to be in front of a crowd. And honestly, being at the trials was kind of fun. It was like watching a mental game of volleyball or something. I don't know. But those are my final words. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.